4:55, May 12, 1937. Kubinka Proving Ground, just outside Moscow. A dense fog clings to the ground, and the damp sand absorbs the light, turning dark beneath the soldiers' boots. A wall of pine woods encircles the field, isolating it. The horizon remains a dull, leaden gray. The heavy grind of diesel engines announces the arrival of a column of track vehicles as they rumble onto the concrete lane. Each is ponderous as a stone. White exhaust fumes billow and cling to the armor plating. On the viewing platform, Stalin stands impassively, a long coat concealing his frame, hands buried deep in his pockets. He watches the scene unfold with an unwavering gaze. A gun crew strains to maneuver a new 76. 2mm F, 22 divisional gun out from beneath its canvas cover. The barrel gleams, slick with moisture. With practiced motions, the crew lowers the trails, wedges the wheels to secure the gun, and adjusts the elevation. A steel target awaits its fate at the edge of the forest. The commander takes a sighting, calling out the range in a low voice. Then, the sharp command, Ogon, fire. The F-22 roars, spitting a 76. 2mm shell from its muzzle at a blistering speed of roughly 690 to 706 meters per second, with a maximum range of around 14 kilometers, and a trained crew capable of achieving a rate of fire approaching 15 rounds per minute. It is a formidable weapon. The shell finds its mark, the target plate erupting in a shower of white fragments. Stalin offers no sign of approval, no nod of satisfaction. He simply turns to Voroshilov and curtly orders, raise output, faster. On the adjacent test road, a BT-7 tank flashes past, swift as a blade, weighing in at 13. 9 tons with relatively thin armor, ranging from about 6 to 40 millimeters depending on the location. It boasts a top speed of up to 72 kilometers per hour on paved surfaces. The turret is armed with a 45 millimeters 20K gun. Inside the cramped confines of the hull, the young crew shares nervous laughter. They've heard whispers of a new tank, something that will offer more than just speed. The name is unknown to them. They simply call it A-32. But in Kharkiv, a draftsman is intimately familiar with that name. He is meticulously transforming a sketch into a reality. A hull featuring 45 millimeters sloped armor and mounting a powerful 76. 2mm F-34 gun. This will become the legendary T-34, approved for mass production in 1940. But here in Kubinka in 1937, it's still just a hopeful rumor circulating in a workshop. Stalin prepares for war not with a single dramatic gesture, but with the relentless, incremental pressure of a man stoking a furnace. 5-year plans are relentlessly driving steel mills, tank plants, and ammunition lines to their limits. Quantity, he believes, is a key to filling every potential void. Production reports arrive at the Kremlin each night, and he scrutinizes them with the intensity of a doctor taking a nation's pulse. Rising production curves bring him a measure of calm. Yet, beneath the surface of steel and industry, another, more sinister process is unfolding. In 1937 to 38, the Great Purge sweeps through the army like a scythe. Tens of thousands of officers are arrested, executed, or banished to labor camps. Across Soviet society, official figures acknowledge over 681,000 executions, though many estimates place the actual number far higher. Military academies lose their instructors. In barracks, voices are lowered when certain names are mentioned under the cover of darkness, and KVD cars pull up the gates. A brief siren pierces the night. A man emerges and walks away, never looking back. 5:20, June 17, 1938, Lake Khasan frontier, in the remote Far East taiga. Rain falls in relentless needles. The mud sucks greedily at ankles. A Red Army company struggles to string field telephone wire through the swampy terrain. Here, Japan serves as the proving ground, the designated enemy for testing new strategies and equipment. The F-22 gun sees action once more, its first real combat deployment. Infantry soldiers crawl through communication trenches, roughly 5 meters deep, their walls reinforced with logs. They practice what the manuals term deep battle, an integrated assault force of tanks, infantry, and artillery designed to achieve a breakthrough and strike deep into enemy territory. The architect of this theory, Tukhachevsky, is now dead, executed as an enemy of the state. The theory endures. The author is erased. In Moscow, Stalin maintains his iron grip on both industry and a pervasive climate of fear. He speaks sparingly, but his control is absolute. As Hitler begins his reshaping of Europe, Stalin, seeking to buy precious time, signs a non-aggression pact with Germany in August 1939, according to some sources. He views time as a malleable metal, something he can forge to his advantage. But even metal requires intense heat to become truly workable. In the waning months of 1939, mechanized formations are created, only to be dissolved and reorganized in rapid succession. Each reshuffling changes unit designations, commanders, and operational doctrines. A young lieutenant receives a newly printed tactical handbook, the ink still fresh. He studies it by the flickering light of an oil lamp. The rumble of trains hauling tanks westward a constant backdrop. One line from his instructor remains etched in his memory. Strike deep. Cut their logistics. In the margin, he scribbles a question. But who will command when the best are taken? Fleeting moments of humanity punctuate the relentless march of steel and doctrine. At Kiev Station, a girl presses a small photograph into her lover's hand. A memento of the two of them by the Dnipro River. "Carry it," she whispers. "Keep it dry." He carefully slides it into his breast pocket, close to his heart. There are no lingering farewells. The train whistle wails, a piercing sound that seems to tear through the sky. He leaps aboard and steals one last glance back. In the period leading up to the war, Stalin transforms the Soviet state into a colossal military workshop, simultaneously hardening the army's exterior while eroding its core. He amasses vast quantities of guns, artillery, and tanks. Yet at the same time, he systematically removes vital components of its leadership and intellectual capacity. The first chilling crest of this wave rises in the Kubinka fog, order and steel and shadow and fear. 6:30, November 30th, 1939, birch forest near the Taipei River, Karelian Isthmus. The air bites with a frigid minus 22 degrees Celsius. A fine snow sifts down from the sky. A bitter wind whips across the frozen lakes. The trees stand stark and rigid, like so many frozen poles. A single white trail disappears into the dense forest. The Red Army takes its first steps into war with Finland. Soviet artillery is massed in the rear woods, preparing for the assault. New 122mm M30 howitzers are brought forward, their short L/22. 7 barrels promising a maximum range of 8 kilometers and a peak rate of fire of 5 to 6 rounds per minute. The familiar 76mm F-22 guns stand among them. Crews brace the trails, swing open the breeches, and ram home the shells. As the opening barrage begins, the intensity of the fire is overwhelming, the ground trembling without cease. Later reports would describe it as a storm of steel unleashed against the formidable Mannerheim line. But in the snow-covered landscape, the gap between theory and grim reality widens. Soviet infantry advance in dense ranks, their white camouflage coats offering inadequate concealment. Squads carry DP, 27 light machine guns, firing 7. 62 times 54 are rounds from distinctive 47-round pan magazines. With a cyclic rate of 500 to 600 revolutions per minute and an effective range of around 800 m, they provide a degree of mobile firepower. They fire blindly through the sparse woods. Bullets smack into tree trunks. The Finnish defenders, however, are not standing in the open. They are concealed in snow pits and camouflage firing positions. A Soviet regiment reaches the first belt of barbed wire. Men struggle to cut through it under withering fire. The Finnish trenches and anti-tank ditches, approximately 5 to 2 meters deep in many areas, according to some sources from field archaeology, are reinforced with snow-covered sandbags. Inside concrete bunkers, Maxim machine guns maintain a steady, deadly rhythm. Each sweep of fire rakes the narrow breach in the wire. Soviet soldiers fall, and the pristine snow is quickly stained red, freezing into a crust. Behind the lines, a political officer reads aloud Stalin's field order. Break the defenses quickly. Short words, beline the vast, unforgiving terrain. BT, 7 tanks blunder into deep snowdrifts, their tracks losing traction. Their thin armor proves woefully vulnerable to Finnish 37mm anti-tank fire at close range, according to some sources. Many erupt in flames, becoming burning pyres. Crews scramble out through the fire, their coats smoldering. Chaos reigns. Supply roads become impassable in the relentless blizzards. New officers, promoted in haste after the purges, struggle to decipher maps. Units lose contact, wander aimlessly into the forest, and are systematically cut off and encircled by Finnish Mahdi tactics. One company finds itself isolated, huddled around a meager fire. In the dead of night, they hear the ghostly whisper of Finnish skis gliding across the snow-covered ground. They fire wildly into the darkness. Trace a round streak through the branches. A letter appears, seemingly out of nowhere. A private named Sergei, fictional, reads his mother's note, shielding it beneath his coat. The handwriting is shaky, betraying the cold. Keep your feet dry. Our stove is still warm. Your sister can read now. Sergei carefully folds the letter away, his breath misting in the frigid air. He glances at a friend curled up nearby, his body stiff, his lips tinged blue. He gently pulls a blanket over him. There are no grand speeches here, only the vital necessity of maintaining breath. December drags on in a bloody stalemate. Soviet losses are staggering. Modern estimates place total Soviet casualties in the hundreds of thousands, killed, wounded, and missing, far exceeding those of Finland. Ratios are often cited as being around 3, 4 to 1, or even higher, depending on the estimation method, according to some sources. Stalin studies the casualty figures without betraying any emotion. He replaces commanders and pours in more artillery and more men. He treats this initial failure as a brutal lesson paid for in blood. In February 1940, Soviet artillery fire becomes more concentrated and effective, learning to systematically destroy concrete fortifications and key strong points. 30 howitzers hammer away at a sustained rate of 3 to 4 rounds per minute. 22 guns fire directly into embrasures. Engineers clear minefields under covering fire. This time, infantry advances in dispersed formations, led by reconnaissance scouts. Sections of the Mannerheim line begin to crumble. The second crest of this brutal campaign ends not with miraculous victory, but with a painful, grinding adjustment. The Red Army finally breaches the line, but the cost is immense. The Finnish Winter War reveals to Stalin what mass alone cannot conceal. It exposes the deep flaws he himself helped to create. 2:10 March 13th, 1940, Leningrad Sky Station, Moscow. Snowmelt has turned to treacherous mud underfoot. The yellow lamps cast a blurred glow in the damp air. A hospital train glides slowly into the station. The doors creak open like fresh wounds. Stretchers are carried across the slick tiles. No one speaks. Only the slow grind of iron wheels and the muffled groans of the wounded fill the silence. Moscow signs a peace treaty with Finland that day. The USSR annexes Karelia and pushes the border further away from Leningrad. On the map, Stalin gains a buffer zone. But in his mind, that buffer feels as thin and fragile as paper should Germany turn its gaze eastward. He understands the brutal lesson of the Winter War. Preparation must be thorough and effective, not just a matter of sheer scale. He orders sweeping reforms. Mechanized forces are rebuilt with renewed urgency and purpose. Deep battle doctrine is revived, though the name of its originator is never spoken. New mechanized corps are rapidly formed, each designed to field hundreds of tanks according to the 1940 to 41 organizational structures, according to some sources. Artillery schools add specialized courses on concentrated fire techniques and precise reconnaissance ammo timing. On firing ranges, 30 crews practice strike, pause, strike, firing rhythms to conserve their gun barrels, then shift their fire by the minute according to coordinated plans. In factories in Kharkiv and Stalingrad, 34 tanks roll off the production lines. Their 45 millimeters frontal armor is sloped at a critical 60-degree angle to deflect enemy shells. A powerful 76. 2 millimeters F-34 gun is mounted in the turret. The tank boasts a top road speed of around 53 kilometers per hour. The powerful diesel V2-34 engines, producing 500 horsepower, crackle and thrum with raw power. A welder wipes the sweat from his brow and watches the seam he's creating snake along the hull like stitches in steel skin. He remembers a younger brother who died in Karelia. He works with renewed determination, his movements faster and more precise. No one needs to remind him why. But this reversal is not solely about acceleration. There is also a measure of hesitation. Stalin continues to believe that the pact with Hitler will hold, at least until 1942, according to some sources. He disregards intelligence reports warning of an imminent German attack. He fears provoking Berlin before his rearmament program is complete. Time is a commodity he desperately seeks to acquire. But time is not for sale. 4 o'clock, June 21st, 1941, Brest-Litovsk. The air is warm and heavy with humidity. A low mist clings to the surface of the Bug River. Soviet border guards change shifts. They peer across the river at the west bank, noting the unusual stillness of the German lines. A young sergeant blows a shift change whistle, the sound short and piercing. He receives a parcel from home, a simple handkerchief embroidered with a single word, "Wait." He slips it into his pocket. He has no premonition that within a matter of hours, the horizon will erupt in a cataclysmic firestorm. When Operation Barbarossa is unleashed on June 22nd, the Red Army is initially thrown back in disarray during the first critical weeks. The number of T-34 tanks deployed on the frontier is still relatively small, according to some sources. Mechanized corps are newly formed and only partially trained. Command experience is lacking due to the purges. Yet, Stalin's pre-war preparations still provide a foundation, however shaky. The massive stockpiles of guns, shells, and tanks stored in the interior prevent the Soviet state from collapsing entirely. Factories are uprooted and transported beyond the Ural Mountains and deep into Siberia, a monumental logistical undertaking that only a totalitarian system could force through in a matter of months, according to some sources. As German panzers thrust deep into Soviet territory, production behind the lines continues unabated, relentlessly birthing steel. The long-term strategic consequences of this industrial resilience become clear later. The map of Europe in 1945 is redrawn in the opposite direction. The USSR not only survives the onslaught, it drives all the way to Berlin and then establishes a sphere of influence across Eastern Europe. Deep battle becomes the central operational framework for the successful counteroffensives at Stalingrad and Kursk. Mass production of T-34 tanks, M-30 howitzers, and later rocket artillery transforms the landscape of mechanized warfare. The psychological legacy is more complex and enduring. Survivors remember two starkly contrasting realities: the industrial might that saved them and the political terror that once blinded them. In Sergei's memory, Karelia remains a tableau of white and red. In the Kharkiv welder's memory, each T-34 seam is a stitch holding together a country that has been ripped open. Stalin prepared for war with iron factories doctrine and with a brutal purge that weakened the very spine of his army. The Finnish winter war exposed the gaping voids within his preparations. He attempted to fill those voids with increased production and organizational restructuring, but he never truly rectified his fatal distrust of warnings. The end result is a profound paradox. The preparation failed spectacularly on day one, yet it was deep enough to prevent total collapse. From that deep well of resilience, the Soviet Union rose to shape half the world's map for decades to come.